for another fill-in, but this class will be postponed until that following week, which will be August 6th or whatever it is, or something. Yeah. هكذا؟ Yeah. جاء صوت جيد يا شيخ وأرفع صوتي خلاص؟ طيب. Before we even begin, so about 2 weeks ago, and the brother who asked the question is not here, but he's going to have to find the answer online or watch this recording, the live stream when it's posted or whatever. I was asked a question, which is a really good question, okay? The question was, what's the difference between a musnad, a jami' and a sunan, collection of hadith, right? And there's others, right? So I wanted to answer that question last week. I didn't answer it, I forgot, and so inshallah I'm going to answer it right now بإذن تعالى. فأقول مستعين بالله, I say seeking the aid and help of Allah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وصحبه ومن اتبع الهدى وبعد. So the question, what is the difference between a jami', a musnad, and a sunan, collection of hadith? And there are other collections of hadith like Asma al-Mustadrak, al-Mustakhraj, al-Muwatta, so on and so forth. Al-Muwatta is actually a type of sunan collection, I guess. There are others. There's ajza in hadith. There's different types of collections of hadith. So, but these are the three main categories of, types of literature and hadith. So number one, the jami'. And the jami' is what we are used to, even though we don't know, like the jami' al-musnad, al-sahih, al-mukhtasar, لأيام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وسننه وغزواته, and that's a long title for what we know as al-sahih al-Bukhari, right? The Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari is a jami' collection of hadith. Al-Jami'. So what is Al-Jami'? Al-Jami' is a book of hadith which in it is gathered a gathering of different types of knowledge, not just fiqh. Right? That's why the name of this type of book is Al-Jami', meaning that which gathers. Sahih. So for example, Al-Jami' al-Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, he gathers in it the hadith he believes are sound regarding fiqh issues, seerah, tafsir, aqidah, zuhud, like asceticism, and tazkiyah, different things. It's not only how to make wudu, how to the arkan as-salah, and it's fiqh, it's tarikh, it's aqidah, it's manhaj, it's tafsir, all those things in one place. Makes sense or doesn't make? For example, the first book of Imam al-Bukhari, Sahih, does anybody know what it is? The first chapter or the first subject, that's the first hadith, ahsant. But what's the first bab, first chapter, kitab? What's the first book within this collection of hadith? The first book, right, of Imam al-Bukhari Sahih is Kitabu Bad al-Wahi. Kitabu Bad al-Wahi, which is the book or the chapter heading that deals with the beginning of revelation. How did revelation begin? It has nothing to do with fiqh. Right? It has nothing to do with prayer and zakat, salah, nothing. Right? It doesn't have to do with any of the like it's aqidah issue. Sahih or not? Yes or no? Sahih or not? So the jami' bad'ul wahi. Bada'a yabda'u, from the word bada'a. Bad'ul wahi. Right? كيف بدأ الوحي? Like how the wahi or how revelation first began with the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, right? So that's a jami'. A jami' book of hadith is a book of hadith that gathers all these different types of knowledges, hadith about them. Hadith about these different types of things, aqidah, manhaj, fiqh, tafsir, this, that, and the other. Make sense or doesn't make sense? And then Imam Bukhari has Kitab al-Tawheed in his Sahih al-Jami', right? His Kitab al-Salah. He has all these different things, different subjects, yeah? Chapter of Tawheed book. He has a whole chapter dedicated, right? And then those chapters have sub-chapters, fusul, right? Abwab, I should say, in his, he calls it bab. Right? Kitab, and then he has a bab. Kitab meaning book, literally translated. If you literally translate it, right? Actually, if you literally translate it, kitab just means somewhere where words are gathered. That's literally what kitab means, but whatever. And then he has abwab, sub-chapters. Okay? He has what? Sub-chapters. Bab is, so Imam, this is the thing with Imam Bukhari's book, it has a special way you have to deal with it. Okay? A Jami' book of hadith has a special way you deal with it. English will fail you. English will fail you. Right? Because we don't have, at least colloquially, we don't use that language anymore. Right? So we call it chapters, subjects, lessons, sub-chapters. We have these in Arabic, Farsi, Urdu. There's a bit more. Even in Urdu, I don't know, but in Farsi for sure. So that's where we took a lot of, our how we organize our books. Abwab is just the plural of bab. Right? Bab is babun wahid, abwabun kathira. Bab is one chapter, abwab is multiple chapters, three or more. Plural, right? So Jami' is the book of hadith wherein the alim or the scholar of hadith, he gathers his hadith and he gathers them about different subjects. طيب, so that's a Jami'. طيب. Then there's al-Musnad. Right? Al-Musnad. Musnad collections of hadith are collections of hadith where the scholar, he narrates all the hadith he knows from a certain sahabi, for example. Right? And he won't organize those hadith in any particular order at all, except by the rawi, and that's it. So for example, if you open Musnad Imam Ahmad, if you open the Musnad Imam Ahmad, you go to Abu Huraira and he narrates all the hadith he knows from Abu Huraira, right? And he doesn't put them in any specific order, okay? He might put the Sahaba in a specific order, so he starts with, for example, let's say Khulafa al-Rashideen, and then he does the Ashra Mubashirin and the rest of the 10 who are guaranteed paradise. And then he begins with Harf Alif, then Ba, and then so on and so forth, right? So Masanid are, or Musnad, which is a plural, and Masanid is, so Musnad is singular, and Masanid is plural. A Musnad collection of hadith is a compendium. It's a what? Compendium. Okay, a large collection of a scholar's hadith that he narrates from whoever he has a chain of narration back to from the Sahaba. But there is no particular order. Okay, so some scholars have come and after him and they've tried to, make some tabweeb, meaning they've tried to organize it in chapter headings. So, there's some work done, but I don't know any one that's recommended by any ulama, and Allah knows best. So for example, you have Musnad Imam Ahmad, right? You have the Musnad Imam Abu Ya'la al-Hanbali, we have the Musnad Imam al-Bazzar, right? And others. We have different Masanid, Musnad al-Darimi, also known as Sunan al-Darimi. So this is a Musnad. Musnad is a book of hadith where the scholar narrates all the hadith he knows from all the Sahabi has chains of narrations from. Okay, but in no particular order. So in the Musnad Imam Ahmad, you go to Abdullah bin Umar or Abu Huraira and you see all their hadith, right? And you'll see hadith from the subject matter dealing with just a random set of things. So you'll see like 13 hadith in wudu, 14 hadith in, for example, Rafi al-Yadayn, and then another 6 hadith in tayammum or zakat, or but you'll see all of them from Abu Huraira. Do you understand? So this is a Musnad. Okay? This was very popular back in the day. especially with muhaddithun, because they don't have to worry about organizing it in any certain way. When they just want to make sard لأحاديثهم للطلابهم, when they want to just narrate all their hadith to their students. They don't want to sit there thinking about how to organize this first, salah first, tawqeet salah first, wudu first, which one comes first, tahara. They're just like, look, my hadith Abu Hurairah, here's all everything I have, a couple hundred, 1,000, 2,000, whatever. Alright, Abdullah bin Umar, these are everything I have. So it was popular with the ulama al-hadith. And then, or through reading, both are, alhamdulillah, both are acceptable. And then we have a sunan. A sunan, like we have Sunan al-Darimi or Sunan Ibn Majah and Sunan al-Tirmidhi, or Sunan al-Nasa'i, Sunan Abi Dawood, right? Although al-Tirmidhi, some scholars say it's a type of jami', but Allah, the point is that there are many sunan collections, right? So what's the difference between sunan and the rest of them? The sunan يختصر على أبواب الفقهية. The Sunan Hadith books, they are organized specifically only according to fiqh issues. You will not find in Sunan Abi Dawood or Sunan Ibn Majah, although there is some muqaddimat, right? But in the actual book itself, it only deals with fiqh issues. Okay? The Sunan of Imam Abi Dawood, right? The Sunan of Imam Abu Dawood, Sijistani rahimahullah, it's a fiqh book. Okay? But it's organized, in it there is a hadith of Prophet ﷺ substantiating these points of view for whatever fiqh issue it is. Makes sense or doesn't make sense? So the jami' is the most comprehensive. Okay? The jami' is the most comprehensive. Because it includes a hadith with all different subjects, right? Different subjects. And then we have the musnad. The musnad has no, basically, subject matter. It is just to collect hadith. Okay? And then the sunan is specifically for issues of fiqh. Make sense or doesn't make sense? And there's others, like I said, mustakhraj, mustadrak, and the ajza, and this and the others. But that's really not important for us right now. If one day we sit and we study ulum al-hadith, we do like an introduction to ulum al-hadith, then we could go into, there's about 7 or 8 main type of collections of hadith. Yes? But these three are the most common amongst the muhaddithun. Alright? طيب, so we're going to do an introduction to Imam Muslim rahmatan wasi'ah today. And this class is going to take, I'm warning you now, at least 2 classes minimum. It might take this class and another 2 classes. Okay, but I don't want to rush. Right? The last Imam we took was Imam Ibn Majah al-Qazwini rahimahullah ta'ala. Okay? And Imam Ibn Majah rahimahullah ta'ala, although he was a prolific scholar of hadith, and he was well known and he had a lot to say about hadith and he had a lot of praise from the scholars, but he was a very private human being. Very private, and we learned about one of his qualities is he was very stingy with his time. So even if you look online about Imam Ibn Majah rahimahullah ta'ala, and I encourage you guys to look up, for example, there's a book by Dar al-Salam that they printed about the biography of Imam Ibn Majah. And I told you guys that even when alhamdulillah, I found that book in my library, I was like, oh, right, I forgot that I had it. And so when I was looking through it just to see the English, like maybe I missed something in Arabic, it's about close to 200 pages, probably 120, 130 pages in normal A4 size paper. Maybe only 30 pages, about 40 pages, 50 pages at most, about the life of Imam Ibn Majah, and maybe probably even less than that, right? And the rest of it is about his positions on different things in hadith, his aqidah, and different things like this. So, because they wanted to meet up the book. It's hard to sell a book that's like 20, 30 pages, right? So they want to make the book a little bit thicker, so they put other things in there. But nonetheless, beneficial, alhamdulillah, right, if you want to learn about Imam Ibn Majah anymore. But that was, alhamdulillah, like a nice way to end the 4 Imams of the Sunan collections, the famous Sunan collections at least, because it gives us now time to give a small muqaddimah about Imam Muslim, okay? And then we were going to do a bit of a deep dive to Imam Muslim's life and to the life of his Shaykh Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala rahmatan wasi'ah. طيب, okay, we ready to take notes, right? طيب, so who was Imam Muslim? Imam Muslim, he was Abu Hussein Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj, Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj ibn Muslim. So he shares the same name as his grandfather, right? So his name is Imam Abu Hussein Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj ibn Muslim al-Qushayri, not Qureshi, al-Qushayri al-Naysaburi. Okay, طيب. Qushayri. Let's start with Naysabur. This is easier to do. Naysabur would be today northern Iran. Okay, southern Turkmenistan, northern Iran. Okay, northeastern Iran. Okay, so Iran's kind of like shaped, like it goes like this, Sahara. Or for you guys looking this way, it's like this way. Okay, it goes like this actually for you guys. Yeah. So Turkmenistan is up here. So it goes like this, and then right here somewhere, and then Turkmenistan is right there. That's where Naysabur is today. So northern Iran. Okay, that's where he was born. Okay, he's from there. He was born there. However, we learn that his name or his nisbah, right, is Qushayri. What's Qushayri? Qushayri is an attribution to Banu Qushayr. Banu Qushayr are from the Arab. Not only are they from the Arab, it's qabilatun Arabiyyatun Adnaniya. It is a Arab Adnani tribe, meaning it is a Arab tribe that's Arabun Asil, like it's a pure Arab tribe, meaning think from Banu Adnan, like Rasulullah alayhi salatu wassalam. Okay, they're from their lineage traces back to Adnan. Okay, so they're from Banu Ka'b ibn Rabi'at ibn Amir ibn Sa'sa'a. That's if you want to know. Okay, so they're from that line, from Ka'b ibn Rabi'ah. So they are Arabs, Adnani Arabs too. Okay, from Banu Hawzan, or from the Hawzan tribe that traces it only between Hawzan and Adnan. It's just a couple of people, and they lived in Arabia before Saudi Arabia, in Arabia, what we would call around from Najd to Ta'if. So like they went. So if those of you who know Saudi Arabia, Najd is the northeast, right? So they امتدوا من هناك, they spread from Najd all the way down to Ta'if, which is obviously Midwest or Midwestern Saudi Arabia, the Hijaz, right? You're talking Ta'if is on top of Mecca, right? So that's where they were mainly found, was from Ta'if all the way stretching back to Najd. Okay, so these people, they were from the Hawzan tribe, and the Qushayri or Banu Qushayr are from them. So, although Imam Muslim is born and he's raised in Naysabur, and not much is known about his father and his grandfather. It's known that his father was a person of ilm. Al-Hajjaj ibn Muslim was a person of ilm, and he sat with ulama, but he wasn't like a scholar. But he spent time with scholars and spent time in hilaq al-ilm. And so when Imam Muslim was born, right, he named his son after his father. He, at an early age, like before puberty, he put his son into, in the circles of knowledge. Okay? So he's Naysaburi, he's from Iran, he's born there, he's raised there, but his asl, his ethnic origin is actually Arab. They migrated there, probably 4 generations ago, taqriban, because he's Muslim. He's Muslim ibn Hajjaj ibn Muslim ibn Ward or Wird ibn Kawshad or Kushad. It's a very Farsi name. Sahullah. So it could be, and it's difficult, and I don't want to spend too much time on this. So you go down a rabbit hole, you open your phone or you go into the Kutub Tarajim, and my books are at home, alhamdulillah, they're not completely organized, but they're organized by title, not by subject, which is annoying. But it's a lot of work to do just to get information that's not really relevant to our discussion here. We don't need to go into that much of a deep dive, right? But I read that far at least, so I know. Okay, Muslim ibn Hajjaj and Muslim, we learned that in school, no problem. Ibn Wird, Ibn Kawshad or Kushad. When I found this name, then I thought perhaps, after that, then the names are also, you can trace it back, but I'm I don't know how to trace those people's lineages, at least not without burning a lot of energy, and I just didn't have time. I'll be honest with you, I didn't have time for that, right? No. He was born in Nisabur. He was born in northern Iran and he's raised there, right? So all intended purposes, right? He's from there. Even if his lineage is somewhere else, like a lot of our children, grandchildren, a lot of kids, Muslim children are born and raised in Canada. Yeah, they're from India, they're from Pakistan, they're from Africa, they're from whatever place, right? But they're born and they're raised in such and such country, so they're attributed to that country, right?
So 6 scholars, only Imam Muslim was from Iran. All from Central Asia.
Central Asia, yeah. And he's the only one that, at least, if I remember correctly, that even though he's from Iran, but he has Arab lineage. I don't know if you want to count that, but it's there, okay? So he's born in Nisabur, okay? The scholars differed about his date of birth, okay? So some scholars, they mentioned that they all agree though, that he died in the year 261. There's absolute 100% agreement. He died 5 years after his ustad, his teacher, Imam al-Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. Imam Bukhari died in the year 256, and he died in the year 261. None of the historians differ on this issue. So some scholars say he was born in 201 Hijri. How did they arrive to that conclusion? Because Imam al-Dhahabi in Sir Alam Nubula, he mentions that he died at the age of around 60. So they just did the backwards math and they said if he died at 60, right? And it was the year 261 when he died, that means he must have been born around the year 201, right? Some of the mustashriqeen and the Orientalist scholars like Karl Brokelman, who's a very famous German scholar of Islam, who was kafir, he's a mustashriq, he's a Orientalist. He said no, he was born in the year 202 for whatever reasons that he said, right? But if you look, Imam al-Dhahabi rahmatullahi alayhi, he mentions his biography elsewhere. Imam Muslim, he's mentioned in Sir Alam Nubula, which is his famous 20 plus volume compendium of narrators of hadith. But he also mentions him in where's the book? In his Tadhkirah, right? Tadhkirat al-Huffaz, or his Tadhkirat al-Muhaddithin, right? Which is a small kind of, it's not a small, but it's a smaller collection of hadith scholars that he mentions biographies about them. There he mentions that he was born, he says, وُلِدَ سَنَةَ أَرْبَعٍ وَمِئَتَيْنِ. He was born in the year 204 Hijri. The year 204 Hijri. Compendium is a collection, large organized collection, right? So Imam al-Dhahabi rahmatullahi in his Tadhkirah, he mentions that he was born in the year 204. Sarahatan, he doesn't leave it to us to do math. He mentions that date, like he writes it down, 204. After that, then Imam Ibn Kathir as well, he mentions this this date, he says, Sanat Arba'in wa Mi'atain as well. Right? That he was born the same year that another Imam died from the Imams of the Muslimin. Does anybody know? Close though. From the students of Imam Malik. Imam Shafi'i. So Imam Ibn Kathir, he mentions that, he says, وَكَانَ مَوْلِدُهُ فِي السَّنَةِ الَّتِي تُوَفِّيَ فِيهَا الشَّافِعِيُّ وَهِيَ سَنَةُ أَرْبَعٍ وَمِئَةٍ. He said, and his birth was in the same year that Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah passed away, and that was the year 204. We all agree, every scholar of hadith and scholar of history agrees that Imam Shafi'i died in the year 200 and what? 4. He was born in the year 150, right? The same year that Imam Abu Hanifa died. See? So Abu Hanifa was born, according to the correct opinion, year 89 Hijri. And then he dies the year 150 Hijri. Imam Shafi'i is born year 150 Hijri. And he dies 204 Hijri. The year that he dies, Imam Muslim is born, 204 Hijri. And then he dies 261 Hijri, and I don't know if there's a scholar of hadith that was born in the year 261, Allah Alam. And then he says, or many of the scholars agreed with Imam Ibn Kathir and Imam al-Dhahabi, and this is the mu'tamad, meaning this is the opinion that is the one that is usually relied upon. The Imam Muslim was born in the year 204, which puts him in his 50s when he died. He was around 55, 56, 57. He was in his 50s, mid-50s. Rahimahullah ta'ala, rahmatan wasi'ah, Imam Muslim. Can you imagine how much khidmah he did of the deen, how much ilm and how much tasneef, writing, and then on top of that, being married and having children, and then teaching students, right? All of that in a span of, let's say 40 something years.
It's equal to like 10 lives of ours.
Basically. What we don't accomplish in 2-3 lives or lifespans, these people would accomplish in short amount of time, right? Again, it's muhafadatu ala al-waqt. Al-muhafadatu ala al-waqt. Really being really diligent with their time, and really like kind of stingy. One time one of the Salaf, I forget who it was, I was just listening to my shuyukh talk about it, Sheikh Arafat al-Muhammadi hafidhahullah ta'ala. He was talking to the tulab about being being diligent with your time, and he said one of the Salaf, he would walk from place to place, he would walk fast. And once somebody said to him, أعطيني دقيقة, أعطيني من وقتك, give me a minute, give me some time from some of your time. He said فامسك الشمس أعطيك وقتي. He said, if you can hold on to the sun from moving, then I'll give you some of my time. And he kept walking. He said it as he was walking. He said, if you can hold the sun from moving, if you can stop time, I'll give you some of it. If not, then right, barakallahu feekum, right? See, the thing is, we're very frivolous with our time, stingy with our money. That's, you would say, highlights the akhlaq of many people today, and many Muslims unfortunately as well. The Salaf were exact opposite of that. They cared nothing about their wealth and more about their time. Imam al-Allama al-Hafidh, Amir al-Mu'mineen fi al-Hadith, أول من لقب بهذا اللقب. The first of the scholars who were given the title, the leader of the believers in Hadith, was Imam Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, rahimahullah ta'ala, rahmatan wasi'ah. He inherited an insane amount of wealth from his father. His father was very wealthy. So he's dedicated his entire life to the study of Hadith, and he didn't have to work a single day of his life. Right? Again, from the barakah of, if you have the right intention. His father was a pious man. But look at his intention. He sought halal rizq. He died. His son inherited all that halal rizq, and it was so much that not only did he suffice himself, get married, have children, he took care of all of his students, got them married, got them homes. He was so wealthy. Imam Abdullah bin Mubarak, rahimahullah ta'ala. And at the end of his life, he had nothing left. That's the beauty, but at the end, you know, the piece de la résistance, like the French say, right? The cherry on top is that he died and he had nothing left, right? And one time he was writing hadith, and back then, you know, pens were made out of wood. You had to make the pen. You can't go buy a pen. You had to make a pen. And so he was writing, dipping in the ink, writing, and there's people around him, students, and his pen snapped. And he said, 1,000 dinar for somebody who throws me a pen. And people threw pens at him. 1,000 dinar back then is like $100,000 today. He's dropping G's like that, brother, right? That's how he carries himself. But not because he wanted, not for clickbait, not for shuhra, for celebrity and status. He didn't want to delay the time. He was in the middle of writing a hadith. His pen snapped. He said 1,000 dinar. He said 1,000 dinar li qalam. 1,000 dinar, 1,000 dinar. And people threw pens and he just picked a random one up. He said, give him 1,000 dinar. And continued writing. Frivolous with the money. We learn about Imam Malik radiallahu anhu rahimahullah ta'ala. Every day he wore a new thobe. Every single day. You know? And so people would come to Medina, you know, because Medina is a blessed place, and people come and they, you know, want to pray in the Prophet's mosque. And they would want to give zakat and sadaqah in Medina, in Mecca and Medina. These are the two places they seek. They didn't know where the fuqara were. Everybody in Medina wore a new thobe. Right? And so somebody once criticized Imam Malik. They said, look man, like, you know, your Imam, Dar al-Hijrah, Medina is known for its zuhud. You know, it's disillusioned with the world. Medina is not a place where you go to get rich. Right? Imam Malik just ignored it. Later on, either near or after his death, it came to light that Imam Malik would wear a new thobe. He would have it tailor-made, so he employed a tailor. Right? That was under his care, his family, his children. Imam Malik paid for his life. He had a new thobe made for him, tailor-made for him every single day. At night he would take it off and give it away in sadaqah. And then his tailor would make him another thobe. He did that so often that the fuqara would walk around in Medina looking like umara. They would look like, you know, sultans and like leaders because they're wearing Imam Malik's old clothes. When we give thobes, arey phat gaya bhai, de do kisi faqir ko de do, right? That's in Urdu, like we say, oh my thobe's ripped, oh my pajama ripped, oh my socks ripped, my pants ripped. Oh, just give it away to the poor people that can make use of it, as if they're less than us, as if they're trash. And so our trash, they deserve our trash. This is so anti-Islamic, brothers, I can't even explain to you how anti-Islamic this is. But I grew up like that, most people grow up like that. Oh, it's broken, the toy is broken, just give it to a poor kid, he'll play with it. As if they don't deserve dignity. As if the fuqara don't deserve dignity. They don't deserve karam and ihsan. That's what we're called to do as Muslims. See, these are our aslaf, these are our salaf. They understood that everybody has izzah, everybody has karam, because they're Muslim. Even the human being, general human being, even if he's kafir, it's a level of karam that you have for that person, because Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Verily we have honored the children of Adam. So that for that reason the Prophet ﷺ forbade from hitting people in the face, hitting even a dog or a pig in the face. We're very far away from the teachings of our religion, and then we want to free Palestine. Like wallahi, the paradox is like, I don't know why it is, because I'm seeing more things on social media, I don't know what it is. These days the paradox to me is becoming so, it slaps me in the face, and I feel shame. I feel shame because we can't sacrifice sleep, we can't sacrifice 7 hairs on your face, 3 inches of our clothes to be for us men to be on top of, above our ankles, but we think we can make tahrir of an entire country. This is not how it works. Nusra, aid and help, victory comes from Allah. It doesn't come from military strength, political strength. The Prophet had none of those things. The Prophet was running for his life. The Prophet was in exile, ﷺ, when the permission to leave Mecca and go to Medina came. And he was followed. Right? They were trying to kill him up to the moment he got halfway to Medina. And then they pulled back. After 13 years of torture, watching Sahaba being killed in front of him, Sahaba watching the Rasul ﷺ being abused in front of them. But the nusrah, the aid of Allah, the victory of Allah came with patience. It came with connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It came with obedience to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. Not through these other worldly means. We talk about establishing, a lot of Muslim brothers are misguided. They say, we have to establish a Sharia, that's the only way. Bro, establish a Sharia in yourself first. Imam al-Albani rahmatullahi said a beautiful statement. As a matter of fact, he didn't say it. He mentions that he heard it from someone else. He read it in a magazine or he heard it from someone else. He said, but wallahi, it touched his heart. He said, the Muslims are so busy talking about the Khilafah, right? Which is not an unimportant thing. It is an important thing. But he said, I read in a magazine, a man said, establish the Khilafah of Allah in your heart, in yourself first, in your family. And like that, Allah will establish the Khilafah of the Muslimin again on the earth. Right? You don't build a house top down. You build it bottom up. Right? These people understood these things. Right? When you read about Imam Muslim or you read about Imam Malik or Imam Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, rahimahumullah ta'ala, rahmatan wasi'ah, may Allah have mercy upon all of them. We're going to learn some things about Imam Muslim. He's a very interesting individual. There are other dates, but we don't need to get into it. 206, some scholars say, but that's generally not accepted. But there were great scholars of hadith like Imam Ibn Salah, Imam al-Hakim, Ibn al-Akhram, and others who, rahimahullah, they believe that he maybe died or was born in the year 206, which would put him at the age of 52, right? At his death. If he died that means he was what? If he died at 261, that means he was, 55. So imagine, he died somewhere in his mid-50s, 55, let's say 50, let's just say 57. Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. But like I said, they all agreed that he was born in the year what? So he died in the year what, sorry? 260? 261. 5 years after Imam Bukhari, 261. And like we said, his family, we don't know much about his family life, meaning his parents, his mother, but we know about Al-Hajjaj ibn Muslim that he was like Talib al-Ilm. You can say he's like from Shuyukh al-Ilm, right? He had gathered knowledge, right? But he doesn't have like mu'allafat, he doesn't have like books he wrote and things like that, right?
If you see relatively, his teacher Imam Bukhari is only 5 years older.
That's it.
He has done more work than him then.
Yeah.
Because he's his teacher.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember Imam Bukhari when he was born. I have had teachers who are younger than me, my age or younger. Look, people sit with, for example, Sheikh Abdullah Bukhari, hafidahullah, or even Sheikh Arafat Muhammadi. Sheikh Arafat is probably my age. He's maybe my age or maybe a couple years older than me. There are shuyukh who, and a day will come where other shuyukh will be born, and me and you will be a lot older they'll be ulama and we'll still be me and you. Right? That's okay. Right? Rasulullah was 40 and Sahaba accepted. There were Sahaba who were far older than him. Heck, Yawm Fath Makkah, the day that Makkah was conquered, Abu Bakr's father became Muslim. And he's far older than the Prophet ﷺ, but this is how it is. It's normal. طيب. And so, a scholar by the name of Muhammad Abdul Wahhab al-Farra, okay, he mentions that Imam Muslim's father put him in the circles of knowledge at a very early age. Okay, and it's very clear from the age that he was put in to the madaris, the hilaq al-ilm, to the circles of knowledge, that his his father wasn't like crazy rich, but mashallah, from a family that was well-to-do. They were well off. And so they had money to spend on Imam Muslim's taking care of him and making sure that he goes to the madaris and that all these things that he doesn't have to worry about going and working at a young age like many scholars had. Like Imam, for example, Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he worked well into his 20s before he actually really started learning ilm. He was always very smart, intelligent, quick-witted, right? But he didn't start talib al-ilm until into his 20s because he was establishing his life, building his business. But Imam Muslim didn't have that problem because from his birth he was born into a well-to-do family. Alhamdulillah. And then when he became old enough, and when we say old enough, somewhere between the ages of 12 and 16, 15, right? This was the average age that children left their home and they went to travel. Sufyan al-Thawri was 12 when he used to wander from city to city, Basra to Kufa and Baghdad, 12, with all his books on his donkeys. Yes? And so imagine, they used to announce his arrival to Baghdad, they used to shout from the gates of Baghdad that the beardless Imam has arrived. The beardless Imam. Because he was that young and he had reached that level of ilm. Right? So, now, so he went to different, obviously, different countries, and at the same time, look at the intelligence of his father and his family. When he went and he traveled, they gave him things to do business with. Like they were people who were textile, like silk and different mixtures of silk. It's called bazzazan, and the bazzaz in Farsi is like a type of harir, it's a type of silk. Okay? Or in the language of that time, bazzaz was like Imam Abu Hanifa again, he was a person who mixed cotton and silk, and he produced a different type of fabric called al-khaz, which is like, would be kind of close to like polyester of our time. Right? It's a mixture between cotton and silk. And so he traveled, and alhamdulillah, he had his ilm, and he would travel for ilm, and then he had what he needed to take care of himself, buy and trade and sell and this and the other. So for the brothers who want to send their children for ilm, it's a very good idea that, and this is a mistake I made, and many of the talab al-ilm they only learn this when they're like 5 or 10 years into their seeking of knowledge. They realize, I'm broke. Right? So before you go to seek knowledge, my young brothers and my young sisters, have some way that you can make residual income. Right? Whether that's a business that doesn't take up too much of your time, some sort of if you have parents that are intelligent in finance, or you are young enough that you have time now, learn about halal investments and ETFs and these types of things, and the opportunities we have in our time for these types of halal investments, it did not exist for our parents, basically at all. The stock market was basically completely, almost, not all of it, but I would argue 50, 60, 70, 80, 90% controlled by riba, outside of maybe like wheat and gold and silver and these types of kind of things. But today, we have entire markets, Dow Jones Sharia compliant market. I'm not I'm not promoting them, I'm just saying that, they exist. Do you understand? We have countries, Muslim countries like Indonesia and the UAE and different countries where they are such a large population of people that the kuffar have to bend the knee and create investment opportunities that are conducive to them being Muslim. And every country has councils of, scholars who they, have their experts in Islamic financing and yada. Take advantage of this while you're young. And I'm talking about like kids that you're 12, 13, 14 years old. Stop doom scrolling, get off the internet, get off, Roblox, get off TikTok, get off of these things that are draining your brains, making you dumb and stupid, okay? And find a way to make money. Right? Money, it gets you stuff. The most important thing that money will get you is not things. The most important thing that money can allow you to have access to is free time. Right? That's the most valuable thing you'll find. Imagine if you start when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, by the time I know, Muslim and non-Muslim, mostly unfortunately non-Muslim, youth who start at the age of 14, they graduate high school and they're millionaires. Or they're worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. My fathers and my brothers and sisters and who are moms and dads, you're young, you can learn this stuff, learn it, start using it to improve your own lives, and then teach it to your children while they're young. Open them an account, give them $20. You can spare $20. Now you can even use AI. This is not a dodge for Islamic finance, yeah? I'm just trying to tell you that look at this one beautiful kind of thing. We're not even into the life yet. We haven't talked about any of his teachers. We haven't even talked about any of his students yet, which is we usually by this point we've done that already. Imam Muslim's parents, they had basira, right? They had foresight, right? Many scholars, even at that time, they would have patience in poverty. Some of them didn't have the ability. They had no choice but to be patient. Imam Malik rahmatullahi famously, he said that my mother, because he grew up yatim, his father died when he was either very young or before he was born. And so he was raised primarily by his mother. And at one point he said, I was writing hadith when I was a young boy. I was just about using on the teenage age. He said we had to take wood from our roof. We had to deconstruct our ceiling to our house and sell that wood so I could buy to afford ink and paper. Right? This is some people have that experience. But the Muslim doesn't seek out hardship. If you're in that position, you're patient, but you don't seek hardship. And so look, Imam Muslim's parents, his father Hajjaj bin Muslim, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, okay son, you're going to go travel, you're going to go sit in Hilq al-Ilm, take these things here. I'm going to teach you how to buy and sell these textiles. So Imam Muslim, alhamdulillah, although, he does go through some hardships, because that's Allah's testing him, but at least he has a trade, he knows how to make money. It's a very important thing, very, very important thing. His teachers and his students. Imam Muslim rahmatullahi is it's mentioned by Ibn Khalqan rahimahullah ta'ala. He said Imam Abu Hussein Muslim Ibn Hajjaj rahimahullah al-Naysaburi, he says about him Ahadu al-A'immati al-Huffaz. He was one of the great Imams and the memorizers وَأَعْلَامِ الْمُحَدِّثِينَ, and the scholar, he was a shining star of the scholars of hadith. رَحِلَ إِلَى حِجَاز, so here we have specific countries. He traveled to the Hijaz, that means Mecca and Medina. He traveled to Iraq. He's from where? Naysabur. So he's leaving Naysabur. He's traveled to Mecca, Medina. He's traveled to Iraq. He's traveled to Sham. In the Sham, we say in English, it's a French word, the Levant. Yes? That includes what? It includes Syria, Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, right? These areas here, we call this what? Sham. Okay? He travels to Misr, to Egypt, just south of there. Right? And he takes knowledge from the likes of Yahya ibn Yahya Naysaburi, one of the narrators of the Muwatta of Imam Malik, great scholar of Hadith. Okay? He, of course, takes knowledge and narrates from Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala. Look, these names are going to come up. I said it from the first class, correct? Certain names I'm going to tell you to write down. Ishaq ibn Rahuya. Ishaq ibn Rahuya. He takes from Abdullah ibn Maslama, aka Ka'nabi. If you've written down his name, then you remember. Imam al-Ka'nabi, rahmatullahi alayhi. And then in Iraq, he travels to Baghdad more than once. And remember, Baghdad at that time, Imam Ahmad is there, Ishaq ibn Rahawiya is there, Yahya ibn Ma'in is there, Ali ibn Madini is there. It is a center of knowledge. Iraq is a what? Center, Markaz al-Ilm. It is a powerhouse of knowledge at that time. طيب. Imam al-Dhahabi rahmatullahi alayhi. There's no way we're getting through all this today. Now, Imam al-Dhahabi rahmatullahi alayhi, he mentions in Sir Alam al-Bula, again his great compendium of narrators of hadith, he mentions about Imam Muslim, وحج في سنة 20 وهو أمرد. He said he made Hajj in the year 220, so he was 18, or he was 16, according to the correct opinion. How do we know that? Because he's born in the year 200 and what? 4. 204 is the most correct opinion. Right? And so if he made Hajj in the year 20, right? That means he's what?
16.
That means he's what? 16. Can you imagine somebody, and he made Hajj how? In a plane, mashallah, in a nice bus, coach bus. He made Hajj how? You think so? How did he make Hajj 1200 years ago? Yeah, what do you mean, brother? You have your 2 feet, you have a donkey, camel, or a horse, or a mule, and that's it. Those are your means of transportation. Or somebody's going to carry you, right? Like, this is 1200 years ago. He's making Hajj, literally a little bit over 1200 years ago. Right? The year 220 taqriban. Right? We're in the year 1447 or 1448. Right? 1448. Safr. So imagine he's 16 years old, okay? And he says here, وَهُوَ أَمْرَد. Okay? Amrad, sorry, so I don't have to worry about it later. Do any of you know what Amrad means? Brother, what's your name again? Adib. Adib أخونا أمرد. Adib هو أمرد. Adib, how old are you? 13. How old are you, brother? You brother, mashallah, your sons have hair early. Yeah, mashallah, tabarakallah. Amrad means that he had very little. Like his beard he had peach fuzz. His beard still hadn't what? Come out yet. And shabun lam yanbut lahu sha'r. They say in the Arabs. The Amrad is the one that the hair hasn't really poked out yet. So he's got peach fuzz maybe a little bit, but the actual hairs, like black hairs and like actual beard hair, hasn't come out yet. So imagine he made Hajj by himself, alone, right, on his feet, and maybe he had a camel or a horse, right, and he was that young that he didn't even have facial hair properly, okay? And he says, Imam al-Dhahabi, he says, in Mecca, he went to, so doing Hajj in his travel to Mecca, that's where he met Imam Abdullah ibn Maslama al-Ka'nabi rahmatullahi alayhi. right? فهو أكبر شيخ له. So he was the oldest of the scholars that he met. Imam al-Ka'nabi was the eldest of the scholars that he met. And he met him where? In Mecca. There's some specifics here, but I'm going to mention them anyways because I want you to focus on the age. Write down everything else too, but look at the age. So after that, he listens or he takes knowledge from Imam al-Ka'nabi rahmatullahi alayhi. After that, he goes to Kufa. Okay, so he's still 16, 17, or he's in his late teen years. Yeah? He takes knowledge from a man by the name of Ahmad ibn Yunus, rahimahullah ta'ala, and the group of scholars there in Kufa. Then he hurries home. Imam al-Dhahabi says, وَأَسْرَعَ إِلَى وَطْنِهِ. Right? Then he goes, ثُمَّ ارْتَحَلَ بَعْدَ أَعْوَامٍ قَبْلَ 30. And then, after some years, before he turned 30, so he was at this age, maybe 24, 25, 26, 23, right? He takes knowledge from a man by the name of Ali ibn Ja'ad, again in Iraq. Ali ibn al-Ja'ad. This name will come up again. Okay? Although he doesn't narrate from him in a Sahih. You might say, brother, if somebody here goes home in between now and next week, you read the whole entire Sahih Muslim. And you come back to me and say, brother, you mentioned Ali ibn al-Ja'ad, rahimahullah ta'ala, is an important individual in hadith. Imam Muslim takes plentiful ilm from him. However, he doesn't narrate from him in his Sahih, not a single hadith.
Because he's a director for Sahih Bukhari also.
No. There's another reason. It's a good guess though. It's a good guess. Right? There's another reason, but we don't have to get into it. But it just shows you that just because you take ilm from somebody, that doesn't mean that you can narrate from them or you have to narrate from them. Right? That's a different subject. طيب, I think I have to stop. I'll mention one more thing. Okay? Let's skip a little bit. I'll skip this paragraph. Who took knowledge from him? So we learned about some of the shuyukh. Okay? I think you guys wrote down maybe like 6-7 names. Okay, that's a lot, right? Okay, usually I only give you 2 or 3. No problem. طيب, we're going to write more names now because we're getting to, Imam Muslim is not like he's on another level. Imam Bukhari, same thing, he's on another level. When we get to Imam Ahmad, that's another level. Shafi is another level. Malik is another level. Abu Hanif is another level. So we have to get used to writing. We started slow. Fair and unfair. Yeah, I give you guys very little tidbits, right? Little bit, but we're going to increase the number because it's just, to do some justice, we have to mention certain names. Okay? طيب, let's skip a little bit ahead and mention some of the akabir, meaning the major students of Imam Muslim. Because like I said, like Imam al-Dhahabi mentions, I couldn't sit there and count. It's taking too much time. I mean, lots of people heard from him, lots of people narrated from him. His Sahih, right, is unique even from the Sahih Imam Bukhari, that it travels far, all the way to North Africa before the Sahih Imam Bukhari gets there. Okay, so there's a whole madrasa, there's a whole scholastic tradition in North Africa that bases its tradition in the Quran and the Sunnah. And the Sunnah, when they say Sunnah, they mean the Sahih Imam Muslim. That's why famously the scholars of Morocco, they say أصح الكتب بعد كتاب الله صحيح Imam Muslim. They actually prefer the Sahih Imam Muslim over the Sahih Imam Bukhari. Okay? So he has a lot of people who narrated the Sahih from him. We'll get to that inshallah. Okay. Abu Hatim al-Razi, Imam al-Muhaddithin, the great scholars of Hadith, the great scholars of Aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah. Okay? Imam Abu Hatim al-Razi, himself a collector of hadith. He has his own books in hadith. Imam Musa ibn Harun. Imam Musa ibn Harun. Same thing. Great, famous scholar of hadith and narrator hadith.
These are students, right?
Students. Imam Abu Bakr or Abu Bakr ibn Khuzaymah. Ibn Khuzaymah. Some of you maybe this name rings a bell a little bit, right? He's a famous narrator and collector of hadith. He has his collections of hadith as well. Makki ibn Abdan, and then that's it, last one. Okay, there's other names. I have a few other names here, but khalas. Okay. So I said Makki ibn Abdan. Makki ibn Abdan. Abdan. Makki ibn Abdan. I want to mention one more, just because this name comes up a lot, and you know what, he does write outside of hadith as well, so you might even bump into him in books of Aqidah. Abu Awana, Abu Awana, A-W-W-A-A-N, A-H, Awana, like that. Al-Isfarayini. Al-Isfarayini. Abu Awana Al-Isfarayini. Okay? Then we'll move on. And you know, subhanAllah, because I didn't have time, and like I said, I don't think it was worth it, because again, we're not going to get into ilm al-hadith and all this stuff. Imam al-Mizzi, rahmatullahi alayhi, okay, in his Tahdhib Asma al-Kamal, Tahdhib al-Kamal fi Asma al-Rijal. Okay, that book I have at home is 36 volumes. How many volumes? 36 or 37 volumes, the print that I have at home. And it's only full of names, it's just a book on names of narrators of hadith. That's it. And that's just one book that Imam al-Mizzi wrote. That's one book. 36 to 37 volumes. He mentions even more students and teachers of Imam Muslim. Students, more specifically. So just to give you an idea of how, mashallah, large of an impact. Imam Bukhari has that same impact. Okay? But Imam Muslim has that impact earlier. Okay, Imam Bukhari, it's like a little bit of a slow burn. Yeah? It takes time for his Sahih to kind of, everybody, they know about it, but this is again 1,200 years ago, so for it to spread, it take a little bit more time. The Sahih Imam Muslim, it spread faster. Okay? So the next thing I started gathering about was some of his attributes and his qualities. So I think this is a great place to stop, because Salah is in about 8 minutes, 10 minutes. So we'll suffice with this much for today. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والحمد لله رب العالمين. Yeah, we can do Q&A, because we're just waiting for Salah. There's nobody here to give adhan. Somebody give adhan, and then we can do Q&A until Salah. The mic is from you. You can do it from your home.
He's इसको लगे तो यहाँ इसलिए आता है
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
My question is, when they born 1200 years back, why it took so many years for it seemed like Sheikh Al-Bukhari and other from India, some Hindu participated Muslims he was teaching in Medina, for them to sort out which is Sahih, which is Sahih.
No, brother. So the brother is asking the question, if the scholars of hadith like Imam al-Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Abu Dawud and others, these great ulama of hadith and these huffaz al-hadith, nuqal al-hadith, the transmitters of hadith, if they were born and they lived 1,200 years ago, some of them even 1,300 years ago, so long ago, why did it take so long for people to come and grade their hadith? That's not what happened, brother, right? Imam al-Bukhari himself is grading his hadith. He's entitling his book As-Sahih al-Jami' al-Musnad, right? Or al-Musnad al-Sahih al-Jami', or I can't remember the exact order. Point is that he's making hukm on his hadith, that these hadith are sahih. Right? Imam Muslim, same thing. Right? Abu Dawud, some of the hadith he makes a comment on them, and some of them he doesn't. As a matter of fact, one of the ulama, or the mashayikh, his master's dissertation or PhD dissertation, it was on this subject, and he entitled it "Ma sakata alayhi Imam Abu Dawud fi Musnanihi." Right? He only analyzed the hadith that Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah left the hukm blank on those hadith. So he did his whole master's dissertation on just those hadith. So the point is that like Imam Ibn Hibban came, Imam al-Hakim came, Imam al-Darimi he came. Scholars are always, the hadith are constantly 4,000 years until the time of Imam al-Albani, and those who came before him, Shaykh Hamad al-Ansari rahmatullahi alayhi, right, or others, right? And so these men, and even some women, but usually men, these men and women, okay, these Muslims, these people were just other people in the line and succession of scholars who have been doing this work. Right? Shaykh al-Albani's As-Silsilatu Sahiha, right? That's his gift to the Ummah. Sahih. He has a Jami' Sahih, he has a Silsila Sahiha, he has Sahih Sunan Abi Dawud, Sahih Sunan Ibn Majah, he has Sahih Sunan al-Nasa'i, Sahih al-Jami' al-Tirmidhi, he has his tahqiq on Adab al-Mufrad. Like the man, he's another example. Some scholars, they say he was like the Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani of our time. He's like, there's not been a caliber of scholar at his level of hadith since Ibn Hajar. And Ibn Hajar was almost 600 years ago. So for 550 years, there hasn't been anybody at the level of Ibn Hajar until Imam al-Albani rahmatullahi. But he wasn't the first. Right? There's many who came before him, and there will, inshallah, many others who come there are after him, inshallah ta'ala, yeah? Barakallahu feekum, jazakumullah khair.